yesterday that we had the St. Louis Blues come out of nowhere to win the Stanley Cup with a throwback team. And I think we're in for some surprises this year, too.
Okay, well, you tipped your hand, okay, about surprises. Why don't you name a few?
Well, I mean, I think you have to start with the off-season movement that we saw this summer. A lot of interesting and big names moving around. In particular, to South Florida, they got the prize goaltender in free agency, and Sergei Bobrovsky. Timing was perfect since Panthers great now, Roberto Luongo, decided to retire. And, so I think you got to start there. I mean, whenever you're strong in goal, that helps. And the Panthers needed goaltending with the retirement of Luongo, and they got it with Bobrovsky. They certainly paid handsomely for it. But many think he's the best goaltender in the game now. So that's number one. They also picked up Anton Strom, which I think will help them a lot on the blue line. I mean, there was a weak point in that Panthers game the last couple of years. It's been on the blue line. They've got plenty of guys that can put the puck in the net, but they didn't have a lot of guys that were helping the goaltender keep it out. So.
Well, let's not lose sight of the fact, Mike, that they did get Joel Quenneville.
Yep. I think that was something that obviously was in the works, whether they want to admit it or not, since he was let go in Chicago last November. Obviously, has a relationship with Talon.
Right.
That goes back quite a few years. We'll see. Interesting. You're only as good as your players, and he certainly had some great players in Chicago. He started with Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, not to mention guys like Hossa. And a whole host of others. So we'll see. We'll see if he's up to the task. He's certainly not going to have the lineup that he had in those days in Chicago, but he's got plenty of guys to work with in Florida now.
Yeah, he really does. I mean, and let's not. I think that the attitude in Southern Florida when Quenneville was hired, I don't know how many tickets he sold, but I'll tell you what, when they brought a guy like him in here, they certainly had a big name recognition here by bringing him in. And let's not lose sight of the fact that the Panthers made a huge mistake when they let Gerard Gallant go, because everybody knows what happened with Gerard when he went to Vegas, too. So I don't know whether that move kind of eases the pain of letting Gallant go, but Joel Quenneville does have a great resume for sure.
Yeah, well, they've had 7 coaches in 9 years with talent, so I got to think this is the last one for him. If not, then they got a serious ownership problem. They're overlooking the mistakes that have been made there.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. 7 coaches in 9 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Is a lot. You talk about stability in any sport. Anytime you have that kind of coaching turnover, there is a big problem. You can't keep changing systems, Mike, every year with the intent that these guys are going to get it. I mean, I don't care if it's hockey where maybe the playbook isn't as big as the NFL. To me, it is what it is. There's some coaches that emphasize certain things, and studying is one thing, but in the end, hockey comes down to speed, the ability to score, and the ability to defend, and how much physicality that you actually have when you're sizing up against the opposition. There's just not as many variables as there are in football, but enough to know that a coaching philosophy of what their style of play does indeed bring to the table. So, all right, well, let's stay in Florida. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Mike.
No, I was going to say, the last thing there, though, is if, when you hire 7 coaches in 9 years, a lot of guys don't get the chance to do that. So if this one doesn't fix things, then I think they got to go above the coach to make some changes.
No question.
Anyway.
No question about that. So here, let's talk about the team that's in your backyard, the Tampa Bay Lightning. And
a disappointing playoff for them, obviously, last year, and what has become sort of a typical start to the season, they're hosting the Florida Panthers tonight, Battle of Florida, to get this campaign underway. But they're as talented as anybody in the league. Obviously, when you have as many wins and as many points as they had last year, you have the Vezina winning goalie in goal and Vasilevsky, and you've got firepower up front, such as guys like Kucherov and Stamkos. I mean, you got to be the favorite again. So I think they're going to pick up right where they left off. I think they're going to be hungry after being swept by Columbus in the first round last year, and I would think they're the team to beat. Certainly in the division and in the East.
Well, it's funny. We talked about that game, and as it stands right now, the Lightning lead the Panthers 2-1, and they're into the third period with 18:56 left to go in the game. So they'll face each other again on Saturday. So there'll be a quick turnaround between these two rivals for sure. And I think they'll play each other, 4 times a year, twice in the first weekend. So, yeah. All right, so now we're talking about the Lightning, and we're going to talk about two facets of this. Now that Steve Yzerman has departed, do you see that how much was a force in that organization was Steve Yzerman, the general manager? And we're talking Tampa first.
Well, I think Steve Yzerman had a lot to do with the success of the Lightning. I mean, he brought the philosophy over from his years in Detroit, both as a player and in management. He understands, again, both as a player and his time in management, that you've got to develop teams. And that's what he brought to Tampa. It's something that they hadn't done for a while before he got there. But he drafted well, and he developed his players in the American Hockey League.
Right.
And you see that success. You see guys like Tyler Johnson, for instance, or Andre Palat. Guys that are homegrown players. Of course, Victor Hedman, who is a top draft pick, who's developed within the organization. There's always Vasilevsky. I mean, you can't replace that when you bring your own guys in, you develop and you teach them your culture, and they grow up understanding what you expect of them, playing together, and that chemistry goes a long way. And that's why they're successful now. So Steve had a lot to do with it, but he also did something else that was really important, and that he hired good people around him.
Right.
And that can't be overstated, because there's a lot of people in those positions that don't have the confidence in themselves or the security in their job to be able to hire good people around them and let them do their job. So, the fact that Steve's gone, I think the way they do things won't change. Julian Breezeball has taken over the general manager, and he was a hire of Steve Yzerman. So, I'm sure he'll carry on and handle things the same way they were handled when Steve was there.
Yeah, the one thing that I know that Steve learned when he was the assistant to Ken Holland in Detroit before he left to go to Tampa is he always said it's important to keep his own guys, and there's no question that he instilled that culture with the Lightning. So we'll go from one end of I-75 in Tampa all the way up, taking 75 up to Detroit. Yes, those interstates connect. And obviously he probably didn't take the drive up there. I guess he's smarter than I am, and he flew back, although who knows. But anyways, he's up I-75 north to Detroit with the Detroit Red Wings. So obviously he's walked into a tough situation with the Red Wings. Although I got to tell you, Ken Holland did go ahead and leave him with a lot of draft choices. So how do you see Steve Yzerman doing in Detroit?
Well, Steve, I mean, obviously he's a guy that's very familiar to the Red Wings organization.
Right.
What the Illich family expects, what the fans expect. But he also knows that he's coming into an organization that had success for a long time.
Right.
I mean, they had a good almost 20-year run, and now it's time to restock the shelves, so to speak. And I think Steve's the guy to do the job for sure. He also brought with him Pat Verbeek, who left the Red Wings organization to go to Tampa with Steve, and now he's back with the Red Wings organization. And he's going to be real key when it comes to player personnel, whether it be through the amateur draft or through pro scouting. But they've got some good veteran players to work with, and guys that aren't that old. I mean, Dylan Larkin, the new captain, he's a heck of a player and a homegrown guy.
Right.
He's going to be important. He's a little bit of a leftover from some of the great veterans in the past, and and help them along. Same thing with Jimmy Howard at goal. You also, I also have to look at guys like Justin Abelgator, played at Michigan State, also sort of a homegrown guy. And they're going to be okay. The problem they have in the short term is they're in a heck of a position. To have to overcome, to start with the Tampa Bay Lightning, of course, they have 120 points last season, and then overcome a Toronto Maple Leafs team that's stacked from top to bottom. Of course, the Boston Bruins, who went to the Stanley Cup Finals and came within a game of winning the Stanley Cup last year. So when you've got those three in your division, I mean, much like the Florida Panthers,
right?
It's never say never, but you're almost starting the season looking to capture one of the two wild card spots.
Yeah, and it's funny when we talk about the Red Wings. I know a common question that's always asked was they had a 25-year playoff streak, and some people criticize Holland for letting it go to 25 and that they should have started the process earlier. Me personally, Mike, okay, I don't have a problem that they let that streak go 25 years. I think it's actually good for the actual culture of Detroit that it went in there, even though they had a few early playoff exits earlier. Although Jimmy Devlano thought that they backed in a couple times, and Jimmy's right, and he's the most credible guy on the planet anyways. But do you think that, would you have had a problem that they should have ended that playoff streak a little bit earlier than it did, or were you fine with how long it lasted?
No, I'll tell you, look, it's a 31 going to be a 32-team league. Only half the teams make the playoffs.
Right.
So if you can get in the playoffs every year, you're halfway there.
Right.
And we saw what happened in the playoffs last year. Nobody would have picked the St. Louis Blues, certainly not in January, and probably not even at the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So if you're one of the 16 teams that gets to play hockey in April, May, and hopefully June, then you're off to a pretty good start, and anything can happen. So if you've got the talent to make the playoffs, you've got to keep going in that direction.
Okay.
I don't think they did anything wrong by keeping that streak going.
I don't either. I think it's great and admirable and noble. And when you talk about the history of that original Six franchise, I'm completely fine with it. I really am, Mike. But I had to bring that up to you because it's something that when you talk about winning culture and an organization in the original Six, a lot of players would give their right arm if they had an opportunity to play for original 16, without a doubt. And the Red Wings are certainly a team that's won 11 Stanley Cups over the years. And you know what? I think they've won more than any American-based franchise in the NHL. And then we talk about the Montreal Canadiens, who, even though we didn't talk about this during pre-production, the Montreal Canadiens have not won a Stanley Cup, I don't think, since 1993. Can you believe that? 1993 for a franchise that was winning it every other year. And, let's face the reality. You said half the teams get in. Once upon a time, there were 60-70% of the teams, but with the expansion and that there's enough talent around the world to fill these franchises, and you know where it's going to lead in a moment, okay? But the Montreal Canadiens, having not won a championship since 1993, what are your thoughts about Montreal's long drought?
I think they became a victim of their culture. This is now 2019, and the days of demanding, a French Canadian or a French speaking general manager to start with, not to mention a coach, and even players that come from that culture is just not going to cut it. There's some great players that come out of Quebec still to this day, but not enough to win Stanley Cups. And so I think they've got to get away from that a little bit, and it may not be easy for them to do, but until they're willing to bring in some bright young minds that maybe are not French speaking, they're probably going to have trouble. And especially, like I said, with Detroit and Florida, they're another team that they're not a bad team, but they're in a division where the three playoff spots seem to be already claimed before the season even starts.
Well, it's funny. You talk about the Florida Panthers, though, for a moment, Mike. They've gone through a lot of coaches in 9 years, but the Montreal Canadiens have been spitting out head coaches a lot, too, over the years.
Sure.